Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my house for over 10 years and have never had any issues with my neighbors. Everyone pretty much keeps to themselves, but we're still friendly if we run into each other. That all changed when my neighbor Bob moved out and a new couple moved in, Jake and Amanda. From the beginning, I could tell they were going to be trouble. They complained about every little thing: kids playing too loudly, dogs barking, even noises from normal everyday living. I tried to avoid them, but eventually the conflict came to a head one Saturday afternoon. It was a nice sunny day, so I decided to have a little BBQ and invited a few friends over. We were just having some burgers and beers, nothing crazy. Well, apparently the smell of the food cooking bothered Amanda. She came storming over, screaming about the smoke coming into her house. I politely tried to explain that we were just having a small get-together and would be finished soon. That wasn't good enough for her. "This is unacceptable. I did not agree to inhale smoke when I moved here. You need to put that fire out immediately," she yelled. I told her I wouldn't be doing that since we were on my own property just trying to enjoy the day. She huffed off back to her house, and I thought that was the end of it. I wish I had known what was coming next. About 20 minutes later, Jake comes barging into my backyard screaming that I need to turn that damn grill off. Before I can even process what's happening, he's getting right in my face yelling obscenities. My friend Steve tries to step in and defuse the situation, which only angers Jake more. Out of nowhere, Jake punches Steve right in the nose. Now, Steve is a pretty big guy, so he doesn't go down, but I can see blood gushing. The rest of us are standing there in complete shock. The next thing I know, Jake is coming at me. He tackles me to the ground and just starts wailing on me. I try to shield myself as best as I can. My friends finally snap out of their stunned states and rush over to pull Jake off. I'm left on the ground with a busted lip and what is sure to become a black eye. Jake is screaming that we assaulted him and he was acting in self-defense. Before any of us can argue, he's dialing cop. I hear him tell the operator that his crazy neighbors attacked him out of nowhere. He conveniently leaves out the fact that he came into my yard and punched one of my guests in the face before attacking me. The police arrive and try to sort out what happened. Jake and Amanda keep up their story that we are out of control, dangerous people. I show the officers my injuries and tell them exactly what went down. My friends all corroborate my story that Jake came into my backyard and started throwing punches without provocation. The police talk to Jake again, who finally admits he lost his cool, but somehow still tries to blame us. In the end, the officers issue Jake a citation for assault and warn him to stay off my property. I think this will finally be the end of things. Oh, how wrong I was yet again. A few days later, I get served with a lawsuit from Jake and Amanda. They're claiming that I recklessly started a dangerous fire that threatened their home and health. Then that I instigated a fight that caused bodily harm to poor innocent Jake. They accused me of purposefully luring Jake into my yard to assault him with the help of my gang member friends. It was utterly ridiculous. I immediately hired a lawyer who helped me countersue for medical bills from my injuries. He also drafted a restraining order to keep them off my property. When we finally got to court, their lawyer tried everything to make me look like the bad guy. But the facts were not on their side. I had multiple witnesses that could validate exactly what happened. Plus common sense that lighting a grill in my own backyard on a Saturday afternoon did not constitute reckless endangerment. After reviewing all the evidence, the judge dismissed their case right away. He granted my restraining order, saying that Jake clearly posed a threat to me. The judge also ruled in favor of my countersuit and ordered them to cover my medical bills as well as additional pain and suffering costs. Let's just say it ended up costing them a lot more than if they had just left us alone that day. I thought surely this experience would make them think twice before ever messing with me again. I gave them more credit than they deserved, apparently. A month later, I hosted a small birthday gathering for my mom in my backyard. Just a chill little family celebration, no music or anything rowdy. Well, about an hour in, Jake comes barging out of his house screaming that we are violating the peace. He's marching across the yard right toward us. My brother steps forward to block his path while I call cop. Jake is yelling threats and obscenities, claiming we are having a raucous party. The truth is, we're just sitting around eating cake. But none of that matters to Jake. The cops arrive and once again have to separate Jake from my family. They question him about the restraining order, which he claims doesn't apply since this is a noise complaint. The police aren't buying his story, though, especially once they see the scene is just a calm birthday party. They inform Jake that he is violating the restraining order by approaching us and making threats. He tries to argue, but the cops aren't having it. They place him under arrest for the violation. A few days later, we find out Jake is being evicted from the neighborhood. The homeowners association said they received multiple complaints about his aggressive behavior. After reviewing his actions, they decided it was too risky to keep allowing him to live there. Obviously I couldn't have been happier to hear the news. It just goes to show you can't allow bullies to keep getting away with unacceptable behavior. If someone harasses, threatens, or assaults you, stand up for yourself. File reports, get restraining orders, press charges, whatever it takes. In the end, Jake's anger and violence cost him his home, but my family can now live peacefully without fear of his insane outbursts. The neighborhood is a better place without him in it. I just feel bad for wherever he ends up next. Not my problem anymore. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I was visiting my friend at his dad's house in an area where the land is so steep that all the driveways have to switch back up from the main road to the houses. A straight driveway is not an option because it would be steeper than the building code allows. A few doors down the road, there lived a nice old couple who, until recently, had a vacant lot next door to them. However, the lot had been sold, and the new owner had started construction on a new house. Unfortunately, the lot was so steep that the new owner built his driveway partly on the old couple's land. It was carved out of the hillside with an excavator. This probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the new owner had approached the old couple first and asked nicely, but did he? Would I be telling this story if he had? In fact, the old couple had no idea what was happening until they came home one day to see a huge scar in the hillside snaking up from the road in front of their house, across the corner of their property, and winding upwards to where an excavator was working to prepare the land for their new neighbor's house. They were pretty upset, but being nice, reasonable people, they figured it was an honest mistake, so they went over to talk to the machine operator. He didn't know anything useful, but he was happy to give them the phone number of the new property owner. The old guy gave him a call and politely explained the situation, but his new neighbor, whom he'd never even met, was having none of it. He flat out denied that the driveway crossed the property line, and he was rude enough that the old guy was pretty upset. At this point, the old couple weren't sure what to do. They double-checked the property pins to make sure they were right, and of course they were. But after further conversations with the new owner, it was clear he was an unreasonable guy who wasn't going to come to the negotiating table willingly. The old couple didn't want to take legal action, because that would have been expensive and, frankly, the damage to their yard was already done. At the same time, they couldn't just let someone walk all over them like that, especially if they were going to be living next door for the foreseeable future. So the situation stewed for a while as construction continued on the new house, until one day when my friend's dad saw the old couple in the neighborhood and they started chatting. Of course, they told him the story about the new neighbor. Now my friend's dad really likes the old couple who don't have a mean bone in their bodies, so he was pretty upset about the situation, and when he went home he couldn't get it out of his head. That evening, after a few beers, he had a brilliant idea. He called up the old couple, explained his plan, and asked for their permission to carry it out. They chuckled and gave him the go-ahead, so he hopped into the rusty old full-size pickup he kept as a second vehicle and drove it over to the old couple's place, where he parked it across the encroaching driveway, making sure it was entirely on their property. The next morning, the work crew arrived bright and early to find that they couldn't drive to the house they were building because some jackass had parked a beat-up old F-150 across the driveway. They saw the note in the window with my friend's dad's phone number on it, so they called him to ask WTF. He explained that he had permission from the owners to park there and that no, he would not move his truck so they could get to work. Furthermore, if anyone attempted to tow the truck, they would be charged with trespassing and theft. There was no way the construction guys were going to haul all their tools up the hill by hand, and they didn't want to get in the middle of a legal battle. So they just called the new owner to let him know they'd be taking the day off, and that they'd continue to take days off until the property boundary dispute was resolved. The new owner called the old couple in a fury, but the old couple told him the same thing my friend's dad told the construction workers. Basically, the vehicle was parked on their own property, so if he had a problem with that, he could go screw himself. To make an already long story shorter, the new neighbor ranted for a while, But eventually he wanted his house to be built. So the nice old couple ended up with a significant sum of money in exchange for an easement allowing the driveway to pass across the corner of their property. And my friend's dad got several thank you cases of beer and the satisfaction that comes from putting an a-hole in his place. The next one is a petty revenge story. About 5 years ago, I married the love of my life. One of the plans for our honeymoon involved a full spa day at this cute little ma and pa place in the town we were staying in. I was hesitant to book it because it was a pretty big splurge for our budget. However, it was our honeymoon, so what the hell, it's worth the memories. Spa day rolls around. Probably should have confirmed the calendar the night before, but I already knew the appointment was for 11 a.m. I now have to admit this was a tifu. Anyway, we wake up and slowly start to get ready. Then my calendar reminder goes off at 10 a.m. saying our spa appointment is now starting. Okay, my bad, but honestly, it isn't the end of the world. The whole thing was supposed to take 6 hours, and we are staying 5 minutes down the road. We can be out the door in a minute or two. I call the spa, and Karen answers the phone. I give her my info and ask if we can still come in and just skip the first 30 minutes of our massage. Karen tells me there's absolutely no way we can come in late to an appointment. Their therapists are on a tight schedule, and there isn't any way they can accommodate our poor planning. Yes, she said that. My polite pleas fell on deaf ears. On top of that, Karen also said that the card I put on file would still be charged for the full day. My new wife and I had to accept that there wouldn't be a spa day on our honeymoon. We were going to attempt to make the most of it anyway. We were optimistic as we were still in a tourist town. We just had to keep in mind whatever we did would add to our budget. That was until the spa called us back about 20 minutes later. Me. Hello? Karen. Hey, this is Karen again. The card you used to book the appointment was declined. In order for us to pay our masseuses, I need another card to charge the pre-booked appointment. Me. Oh, that's right. That card was stolen 2 months ago. You want me to give you my new one for a service I'm not going to receive? Karen. Yes, we have to charge you in order to pay our employees. Me. Oh, good luck with that. Bye now. Second call. Me. Hello. Karen. Hey, I talked to the manager. We can get you and your wife in for an hour massage, but we will have to charge you for the whole day so we can cover the costs of our employees. I just need your new card number ahead of time. Me. But you told me there was nothing you could do, tight schedule and all. Are you sure you can fit us in? Karen. Yes, I talked to the manager. We can make it work. Me. Oh, darn. Well, you see, my card is in my wallet across the room. I don't really have time to get it with all the other things we scheduled to do. Goodbye. They called back 2 more times, then left a message saying we could have the rest of the whole spa day, but I was unable to answer. I was too busy having a blast at the zipline park we attended with our saved cash. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I used to work for a supermarket chain, and quite often I'd be asked by management to work at other locations. Most of the time this wasn't a big deal. I was happy to help out. It gave me an excuse to drive and have the petrol paid for. However, one day I was asked to work at a location very far away, at a very early hour of the morning. I initially refused on the grounds that I would have to wake up at around 2 a.m. in order to have a shower, breakfast, and drive to be on site for 5 a.m. After some arm-bending from management, I finally relented and begrudgingly agreed I would do it. Due to the drive not taking nearly as long as I initially expected, I arrived on location at about 4:30 a.m. I waited in my car with the music playing. At 4:50 a.m., I got a loud knock on the car window, nearly making me jump out of my skin. It was the manager for that store, who, never having seen me before, did not know who I was. The conversation went as follows. Manager. You need to leave. This is private property. Me. Oh, but manager interrupting. I don't care. Go, now. Me, quickly realizing I can play this to my advantage. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I don't want any problems. Of course, I'll go right away. Sorry. And as per his request, I drove home with a smile on my face, knowing that I have the rest of the day free to myself. A few hours later, I got a phone call. I answered the unrecognized number, and I recognized the voice immediately. It was the manager who told me to leave. Manager. Hello, I'm looking for my name. Me. Hi, yeah, that's me. Manager. This is manager name calling from location. I was expecting you to work with me today. You should have been here for 5 a.m. Me. Trying to sound casual. Yeah, I was there waiting in my car. You told me to leave, remember? Manager. But you didn't say that. Me. Interrupting. There are no ifs or buts. I was on private property and was asked to leave. I was legally obliged to do so. Manager. Right. But don't you think... Me. Interrupting. It doesn't matter what I thought. I was asked to leave private property. I'm not going to break the law and risk getting in trouble with the police. It was at this point he hung up on me. I expected to get in trouble for what had happened, but I never heard anything more about it. This was a few years back now, too. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed it. The next one is an entitled People story. I am a short female who works overnight at a gas station alone, 5 nights a week. I wear a mask because, to be blunt, people really stink. People emanate all kinds of odors, and I'm overly sensitive to scents. I've had homeless people come in who clearly haven't bathed, or some older people who smell like a brewery buying more cases of booze. I do not judge. They can buy their booze and lotto tickets all they'd like. If they come in with at least a decent attitude, I'll return it. Thankfully, I have an awesome manager who knows I can and will throw a bad attitude back in the customer's face when it calls for it. This night just so happened to be one such night. This was a couple of weeks back at this point, and I'll admit I'm still ticked at the lady for doing this. It was about 2 a.m. when this skinny, short lady came in. I noticed she had hospital bands on, which is not uncommon since there's a hospital a few blocks away, so this station is likely on her way home. I felt sympathy for her. She's probably exhausted and emotionally drained. I expected her to vent, and I'd let it go in one ear and out the other, as I've done a few dozen times at this point. Well, that didn't happen. She noticed my mask and began asking me about it rather accusingly. Why are you wearing a mask? You know those things don't work, right? I immediately decided to stonewall her, dropping the customer service voice. I sternly said, why I wear it isn't your concern, and went about the transaction, ignoring her remarks and a few insults. As I was grabbing her cigarettes, I heard her cough. Now, again, she had hospital bands on, so I didn't think anything of it at first. Clearly, she's at least somewhat sensible and is coughing away from me, right? Nope. She continued to cough, and as I glanced over while I was bagging her items, she was coughing on the card reader and the displays on the counter. She leaned toward the lotto scanner and coughed more. I was getting mad at this point, but remained silent. It wasn't until she leaned over the counter, nearly into my face, to cough on the register and me that a switch just flipped. I grabbed the bottle of disinfectant and started spraying. I sprayed the counter, the card reader, her purse, the outside of the bag with her items, and even her shirt. I was aware enough not to risk spraying her face, but she was still coughing on everything. She moved to the newspaper rack, the drink cooler, even the door, looking like a toddler marking territory. She ended it by grabbing a basket display of snacks and chocolate and flinging it across the floor, saying, "Have fun cleaning that up, witch. Just wait till I tell your manager. I'm her friend, you know." To admit, I had been screaming at this woman to get the F out of my store the entire time I was spraying things and her. I was shaking mad, and I yelled back, "Do it! Tell her! I'm telling her myself after this." Which I did, actually. I texted my manager immediately after she left. I cleaned up the display and wiped down everything she coughed onto as carefully as I could. I had to take an anti-anxiety pill to quell the panic attack I had after the anger subsided. Jumping forward to the morning when my manager arrived, I was expecting her to be at least upset, as I told her everything I've said above. I was certain I'd at least be written up. Instead, this woman handed me a coffee from Starbucks and said she was lucky I wasn't in here, and left it at that. I saw her days after and got the chance to point her out to other staff, so now everyone knows she made a bio attack, as we dubbed it, on the store. I don't know if she's been back after that, though, since she hasn't come overnight again. The next one is an entitled parent story. I went to pick up my niece and nephew from their school. They get let out at 2:30, and I got in line at 2 p.m., a whole 30 minutes early. I was in the turn lane that goes left, and there was one car in front of me and one car on the opposite side waiting to turn right, as there was already a line waiting on the street. No big deal, I know where I am in line, and I can turn in when there's space and it's my turn. Boy, was I apparently wrong. Already one car cut in line once it started to semi-move. Okay, nothing we can do about entitlement, but there couldn't possibly be more instances. Apparently once my turn came up, Others decided it would be okay to cut in front of me. Not one, but 3 cars. As I started to assert myself dominantly to turn, now the big white SUV cuts in front of me, blocking me off from being able to get in, and now I'm the a-hole blocking the intersection. Now I'm fully pissed off, and I more than likely am wrong for this, but I decided I was going to show them what real entitlement is. So no more cars were using the left lane part where they access the parking lot. I parked there, looked for my niece and nephew, and saw my nephew. I told him to go grab his sister. At this point, some cars start honking at me from the right because they want me to move. I'm not blocking them at all, but of course now to them, the literal same cars that cut me off are mad at me. A teacher or school employee told me to move. I refused and explained that the cars behind me cut me off and forced me to be stuck in the intersection. My niece and nephew did not know I'm there to pick them up. Well, they didn't until I caught my nephew's attention, and I said I will not move. She told me she would have them meet me in the parking lot, and I said no because I wanted those people who cut me off to see me get my kids first, which is what I did. I told them to meet me at the parking lot, and that's where I did pick them up. I did stop for a moment to apologize for my belligerent behavior. This is honestly the first time in 7 years I have done this when picking my niece and nephew up from school. I did tell the employee I wouldn't do it again, and I won't. Today I just wasn't having it, so maybe I am entitled as heck today for doing that. But it really isn't the first time I've been cut off in that godforsaken child pickup line, and I'm honestly sick of it. I am definitely wrong, but I also didn't want to be the jerk blocking the intersection. So I stayed to the left to get my niece and nephew's attention to meet me in the parking lot. I got my kids first and then left. Also, apparently, one of the women who cut me off called me a fat jerk. Oh well, this fat jerk got her pickup before you. I don't know. I guess I'm just ranting, and I'm still angry I was put in that situation where normally I am respectful and accommodating. I do not know what would be a better way for this situation, but I wish people would actually be kind and not cut others off or cut the darn line. They're not the only ones who want their kids or have other stuff to do. Next time, I'll just come to the school at 1:30 and be first in line to avoid the line cutters altogether. You can criticize me now if you want. I just wanted to vent. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.